The People First podcast is a show presented by people with learning disabilities for our friends and community. We talk about issues that are important to us and interview interesting people to find out new information. This is our way to make a difference and have our voices heard.
Hello and welcome to the first podcast. Today we have a pleasure welcoming MP, so the Minister, Vicky Foxcroft to the show. Vicky is Labour MP. We will ask her some questions about government and disability policy. Welcome, Vicky. Thank you for your time today. We hope you enjoy this show.
How long have you been part of the Labour Party, and what is your role as Shadow Minister for Disabled People?
So I first got involved in the Labour Party in 1996, so the run-up to the general election that Labour went and won. I actually didn't know much about politics at the time, apart from I wanted Labour to get elected. But over time, I've got more and more involved, and hence being an MP now and actually having the absolute pleasure of having the role of Shadow Minister for Disabled People. I took on the role of Shadow Minister for Disabled People back in April 2020. So we'll all remember that was the start of the pandemic and the disproportional impact that had on disabled people. And one of the things that I see as my role as Shadow Minister for Disabled People is making sure that I engage with disabled people's organisations and others, and make sure that I represent your voices in Parliament. And I really tried to do that during the pandemic. Now, I would hope one day to lose the shadow off my role and to actually be the Minister for Disabled People, and then to start enacting policies that actually make a difference and make lives better for disabled people.
Who and what inspired you to enter into politics?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think really it's more the what than the who. And the what was really wanting to make a difference, wanting to change things, wanting things to be better. Like I said, when I first got involved, it was very exciting times. We got a Labour government, and we all know the differences and changes that happened under that. Sadly, since I've been an MP, so 2015, I've only been in opposition. And before I was an MP, I was a local councillor in 2010. And we had all of the cuts coming through from the coalition government that caused a lot of problems in terms of our finances, in terms of the local council. And indeed, they've got even worse over time. On the who bit, though, I would say that I've had a lot of people who've helped me, that when I thought, should a working class, person like me be involved in politics? I never studied politics. I did BTEC Performing Arts. I didn't get my GCSEs or, the A's to C's or 4s and above, I think it is now, at school. But a lot of people who really supported and pushed me to say, your voice and voices like yours are really important in politics. And one of them was somebody called James Grujon, who you won't know. And of course, my mum's always political and pushes me on that. Indeed, she tells me every day how I should be doing my job better, and I don't do it well enough. So,
in what way do you recognise the contribution of disabled individuals to society?
Yeah, and I think that this is absolutely key. And it's one of the things that I've really sought to do ever since having this role. And you'll all know that there's a phrase co-production, so working with disabled people to make sure that we go and get policy better and right and actually get things right the first time. I think one of the challenges is explaining what that means without necessarily using the words co-production, because some people don't understand that. But the essence of making sure that we work together to improve stuff, and actually that disabled people are included at the start and not at the end of a process. So it's not just, oh, what do you think of this? It's actually, how do we go about doing and delivering this together, and is it the right thing indeed to be delivering? So I think it's absolutely key, and it's one of my priorities, and I'd love to be able to take that as a priority forward into government.
How important do you think live experience is disability citizenship policy and decisions in government, and why?
I think it's absolutely key, and I think I touched on a bit of this in terms of my last question. But I think if we don't do this, we're not going to do things right. And if we think, one of my own local examples was during lockdown, we did all of these lower traffic neighbourhood schemes, and we didn't work with disabled people on it. And actually, a lot of the schemes were really bad for disabled people, and actually they were bad for other people as well. And then we've had to go back, we've had to revisit it, we've had to redo things again, and it's actually cost more money. We've wasted money, whereas actually, if we'd have made sure that that lived experience was there at the start, we'd have had a much better scheme, and we wouldn't have been wasting money on having to redo things again in the future. So I think it's absolutely key. I really, really genuinely do.
Can you share your perspective of a downgrading of a disability minister and your thought on what has happened since?
I thought this was absolutely outrageous. So, like I said, I've had the role for 4 years, and there's been 4 or 5 ministers for disabled people, and this is the second time they sought to downgrade the role. I hope you're all aware that they've now made the role back as Minister of State, which I'm really glad to see. But it shouldn't have taken so long. We shouldn't have had to argue so much to make sure that this is the case. And I think, it kind of just sends a message to disabled people about what this current government think they can get away with just downgrading roles, having actually the job have a whole ton of other jobs with it as well. And I'm really glad that it's been put back as Minister of State, but I was really, really angry and upset in terms of them downgrading it for the second time since I've had the role.
What is your thoughts of the changes being made to reform disability benefits set out in the last bullet?
Yeah, and this is a question that I could talk for ages and ages on. But in trying to be slightly short on this, I don't think government ever really works through everything and kind of plans it. At the moment, we're supposed to be waiting on a green paper that in theory was announced last Friday to be telling us what they plan to do in terms of sick notes and PIPs and so forth. I don't think we've quite had the detail in terms of everything from them. So it's quite hard for us to analyse all of that. But what is worrying is the language they use around this and the message that they're seeking to send out from this, kind of dividing people, dividing communities. And we have no truck with that. We do not think that is what we should be doing. And what we've said that we'll do in government, and hopefully we end out in government, because I've only been an MP in opposition, and I can tell you it's frustrating at times just shouting from the sidelines, is we want to work with disabled people's organisations to reform the benefits system, because we know it isn't working. We know, for example, the assessment criteria isn't right. We know the way that assessments are happening isn't right. Why are decisions overturned all of the time? Why, when somebody has a condition that we know isn't going to improve, Are they being reassessed time and time again? So we know that we need to reform this, and we absolutely are committed to doing that.
If Labour was elected, what would you change to improve the lives of disabled people and with current put to public services with disabled people the instant change?
I mean, I'm not sure that we exactly would be able to see all of the instant changes that we'd want, if I'm being brutally honest, because we don't know the state of the public finances. We kind of think we do, but everything we're hearing is that they'll be even worse. But what we will see an instant change in is the language and the rhetoric that's used. In terms of priorities, I spoke before in terms of co-production. This is really important to me. But it will take time to bed it into government and to embed the principles of that right across government. And actually, when making policy, it will take longer when you're doing genuine co-production. But actually, it means we'll get it right. And I think that is really important, that we get things right, that we don't just do things quickly that might have negative connotations because we might think it's right, when we don't actually know the entire lay of the land in terms of everything at the moment either.
What strategies do you think is estimating inclusion of people with disabilities in our society?
Yeah, I'm going to sound like a broken record now, but I will go back to the co-production stuff and making sure that we work with disabled people and making sure we change the culture so that starts to happen across society, so that starts to happen, in all of our local authorities, so that it happens in government, so that it happens on local levels, and actually indeed that it happens with employers who work with disabled people to change their practices, actually find that their businesses absolutely thrive and they do much better. And we need to go and build on that for people to see that, that co-production, that working with, actually not only does it deliver better for disabled people, but it delivers better for everybody in society.
Do you believe that engaging with disability group would help from parties going forward? And if so, have a disability have voted to group? I thought, would you consider as an option consulting with us if you were elected?
Absolutely, 100%. In its entirety, committed to that. I think it's key. I think it will be key to me being able to do a good job. I think it's key in terms of making sure that we've got better policies. Absolutely. One of the things that I would say is that we need to ensure that it's not just groups who speak on behalf of disabled people. Disabled people's voices have to be at the heart of that, and being able to be empowered to ensure that they can advocate for themselves and for those changes. Because sometimes, and I found this when I was first elected, there can be some organisations that talk for disabled people and sometimes they get it wrong. Absolutely. I think this is really key. It's there. It runs through everything that I say, which is the reason why at times I'm like, I might be sounding like a broken record, repeating the stuff in terms of co-production, but it's so important. I really do believe getting that right is how we'll get those big and fundamental changes. And one of the other things I quite often say is that disabled people have to be thrifty with their finances every single day. Why would we not think that disabled people were able to be thrifty with the public finances?
If the Labour Party won a next election on the list on priorities, where would disabilities issues assistance in the dial alongside all of the other matters and elected government need to address?
Yeah, and I think that it has to run through everything. I know that myself, I've met with every single member of our shadow cabinet talking about this and talking about our policy priorities and where disabled people are in there, talking about co-production, working with and setting up meetings with disabled people's organisations and others to make sure that it is at the heart of everything. One of the things that I sometimes say and joke about is I say when I do speeches, I'm just going to let you into a little secret. I don't want to be the shadow minister for disabled people, and I say I want to be the minister for disabled people, and the next line I really mean, but in a future Labour government, every minister would be a minister for disabled people.
As well, I characters that I thought to remain open with all the development put without feeling.
Yeah, and I think that charities, disabled people's organisations have really struggled, with this, and it's been 14 years. We're not there and going to have loads of money to be able to dole out straight away. As I said, we don't know the state of the public finances. But you can't do co-production without finding, other ways of repositioning certain parts of public finances to ensure that is, supported. I would hope that some of that would support things. I also would hope that the kind of changes, in rhetoric, in language, we know that if we have the Conservatives in government again, they're not just going to stop where we are at the moment in terms of stuff. They're going to go further, harder, and quite possibly even faster.
We are going to quickly put to the office now to see if there are any last audience questions before we end the show.
Hi, Vicky. So we've been talking about working on a citizens' jury with Nottingham University with Dr. Lucy Series and Dr. Nell Munro. We're wondering what your thoughts are on citizens' juries.
I'd be interested to find out more about how it goes. I wouldn't want to kind of go into all the details of that. Sometimes different things have different names at certain times, but I'd be interested to find out, a bit more about how that's going.
Yeah, it's going to be a panel of 12 people with learning disabilities. And the other thing we were thinking of was Robbie Moore came on our podcast and said that the media is making an issue out of the change in personnel when it came to the disability minister changes. And that it's not actually an issue. If he's suggesting that there's a problem with the media, where do you suggest we get our news from?
Who suggested that?
Robbie Moore, our MP. We had him on the podcast. He said that the change in disability minister was actually just the media making an issue out of the change in personnel.
No, that's like literally ridiculous, right? We all know that, well, was it 9 days before they appointed anybody to the role? And then after that, it was a shared job, like completely shared job. And then after that, it was parliamentary under Secretary of State. I know I'm going quite technical on the positions and stuff, but it matters in terms of the influence across government. And actually, at times, sometimes the media's demonisation of disabled people is a bit of a problem. So I think it's trying to use polite words, but I think it's a bit rich to be saying that, to be honest.
Thank you.
In your role as Shadow Disability Minister, do you have lived experience of disabilities, like someone in your family or working alongside them?
Yeah, so I've got rheumatoid arthritis myself, was diagnosed in 2019, so acquired. My sister's broke her neck a few years ago and has had problems with that ever since. Say that in terms of being an MP and the amount of casework that we get in terms of people with, particularly like PIP and limited capacity for work-related activity, getting through the care system, getting the support in place that they need. as well as all of the other kind of everyday, day-to-day struggles. I mean, not everybody's struggling like all the time, but I think that's what you're particularly asking me about. And yeah.
The time I for today would like to thank Vicky again for spending this time with us and working with us to answer questions. We think it's very important that disabled people have a chance to ask questions of MPs and have their voices heard. Do you have anything else you would like to add before we end the show?
No, just to say thank you very much for inviting me on and for all of the questions. And it's been really nice having a chat and a discussion with you, and invite me back anytime. Hopefully when I'm minister.
Bye.
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 Remember to comment, like and share on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. You can find us by searching for the People First podcast. Thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.